We ask that you take this time to silence all cell phones and electronic devices, and please no texting during the performance. Thank you for joining us.
Say it again?
Should they call you Andy?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't, that's better than, I guess, a lot of alternatives, so yeah. Andy sounds good.
Andy sounds good. So I thought I would just ask you a couple of questions to get started. And then we have microphones. I don't know if you need them, since you're all likely a bunch of projectors. Is that accurate?
Yes.
You're so quiet for a bunch of projectors. Okay. So, Andy, could you tell us a little bit about your drama kid life? Did you grow up theater or music, or where were you?
I grew up a theater kid in West Texas, Midland, Texas, home of Friday Night Lights. And all I ever wanted to do was act. And we moved to Houston, and in high school I continued just focusing on acting, and anything that was theater I did. And I ended up on a theater scholarship, and I was at Texas Tech in Lubbock. And one day I was on stage as an actor doing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and I had an out-of-body experience that I did not want to act. I wanted to direct, probably much to the disdain of my wonderful director who was giving direction, and I was thinking, well, it'd be better if he went over there. And then I realized, I should not be an actor anymore. And but that was all I wanted to do. And then I did not think you could be a kid from the South or a kid from, I guess, West Texas and go to Hollywood. But the day I graduated, I didn't know anybody. Certainly didn't know anything. And I had about $500 and a couple of suitcases, and I had an uncle who lived in Long Beach, which is about an hour and a half outside of LA, and he said I could stay there. And I moved there and literally probably proceeded to do every wrong thing that no one ever taught me.
Could you elaborate on the wrong things?
Sure.
Or one example.
I didn't know how to get a job in Hollywood. And so I wrote letters to the heads of every studio introducing myself, thinking that seemed proper. And I'd be like, hello, my name's Andy Fickman. I'd give them some of my, you might have heard my Cyrano de Bergerac in high school or whatever it was. But I went on talking about how I'd love an opportunity for a few moments of their time. And nobody responded, except for I got one letter from NBC on letterhead that said, thank you for your consideration, we'll keep you on file. I thought that was like a real thing. I thought I was on file. Turns out that was not a real thing. And but that was one of the first of just not understanding. Phone doesn't ring, we are as an industry, or an industry from the beginning of time immemorial, when we kind of created the industry, was you kind of had to put yourself out there. Nobody was necessarily coming to you. At a certain point they do, but in the beginning, you want to, just so I kind of know how many people want to act, how many people want to sing, how many people want to write, direct, produce, other, just involved in the entertainment industry. So I realized I didn't have once I kind of realized, I felt different. I didn't feel like I sounded like a kid from West Texas and everyone seemed to be smart and they went to Harvard and Yale. None of them went to Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. And my first job I got was a tour guide at Universal Studios. I just graduated college and I now had a name tag and I was on a train. And I thought, this might be a vocational error. But I was on a studio lot. One of the most storied lots with so much history. And every day I'd go and I learned so much about Universal, but by learning, I was learning about Hollywood. I was learning about the history of film and musicals and all of this world. And that really kind of launched it for me. And I got a job in the mailroom at a talent agency. And it was literally working your way up from the bottom up. And I was meeting people and I started a theater company. And the theater company is called Fountainhead Theater Company. And I said I wanted an opportunity to direct and do theater. And in LA, you go to New York to do theater, you don't necessarily go to LA to do theater. You go to LA to be film and television. But I found a group of people who, everybody was an unknown. Anne Heche, Molly Shannon, Ron Livingston, John Lee Hancock, who did Blindside and Alamo, and John Zimmerman, Patrick Massett, wonderful showrunners. And sadly, a dear friend, Willie Garson, who just passed away yesterday. That shook us all. But it was just people coming together to do theater. And we did the first play called A Weekend Near Madison by Kathleen Tolan. I directed it, and we literally did garage sales to pay the rent, and we're borrowing we never threw anything away because it could be a proper costume someday. It's still my house now. And that show became a hit. And in LA at the time, the biggest theater critic was a woman named Sylvie Drake. And she actually had a lot of power in Hollywood. And she said, finally, there's a new theater company in town. We were not. We were a bunch of people who just graduated college who were looking for an outlet. But we thought, okay, let's be a theater company. And we created a theater. That theater still exists, which is called the Hudson Theater in Hollywood. And it's where I launched Heathers. It's where I launched Reefer Madness, where I launched Utopia. All these shows that ended up going to New York and traveled. And that really proved to me, it didn't matter that I didn't go to UCLA or USC or Harvard or Yale. It didn't matter that I was from West Texas. It didn't matter that I didn't know anybody. What mattered was me doing the work. And what mattered was, I actually think I kind of figured out, what plays don't I know? I'd go to Samuel French and I'd get plays. I'd order on Amazon. I would go, what movies? I just educated myself further. And then I just found people who were kind of like me, thinking well, no one's calling me, so you guys want to go do a play? I don't know if it'll work. And that ended up really leading to everything for me in my career was that. And so I don't think everything I didn't know kind of probably helped me because I didn't have in my mind I couldn't do it. I remember my mom who said, very concerned that I said I was moving to LA, and I'd just been offered 2 jobs. Procter & Gamble had offered me a job to work in their sales department, and I went out and they were hard rushing me. And we were having dinner in Lubbock, and I was student body vice president and all stuff, and they brought their top sales guys to tell me, and they went around the table, and this was taking nothing against them, but I was dreaming about a career in the arts, and they were going around the table, and they were like, I'm in toilet paper, I do laundry soap, and they were so excited, and they were looking at me like the opportunity is endless, and I'm like, I I should not be at this table right now. And I do remember one guy was like, the real thrill is we get all these free samples. I'm like, good to know. And, but my mom said, why do you think if you're going to go to Hollywood where so few people make it, why do you think you're going to make it? And I honestly didn't even think, I just said, well, somebody has to make it. I don't know why it can't be me. And I think that attitude has probably served me well. And I think everything that we have done is just what we have created. And it doesn't mean you don't get calls and offers, and there's film and TV and theater I've done that have been because my agents have gotten it. All of that exists. But to start is just me in the same place all of you are. And the only difference is you got to push past whatever that inner voice is that's kind of telling you no. The inner voice that keeps you from doing it, or maybe the inner voice that keeps you from rising to whatever is calling you. And I haven't met anybody in LA or New York or London that hasn't been that same person. I've met plenty of people who have maybe had an extra foot up. Maybe they've had someone in the family, or maybe they financially was in a place. I didn't have any of it. But I rejected the notion because I didn't have any of it, it wasn't possible. And every day that I didn't have something, I'd go to the library, I'd write a note and I'd be like, what theater no? I don't know anything by Pinter. And I would go and just get Pinter and I would read, or I would say, I don't know, foreign director, I don't know Kurosawa, I don't know. I'd go to, at the time, you could go to Blockbuster and I'd rent like 10 movies. Now, literally, if I look at, like, if I had my computer and everything you could do today, I'm like, oh, I could have beat this game a long time ago. Because every time I go to Blockbuster, I'd come in with my pen and be like, more please, and I'll have some red vines. But that is all kind of how it all started.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, we see that you might be wearing upon your head a chapeau that's entitled Heathers the Musical. Raise your hand if you know Heathers the Musical. Yes. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that, since they're emotionally invested in this already? How many of you have seen it? Like, you saw it? Where did you see it?
There's local productions. We have an illegal production on YouTube.
Yeah. I feel like we should tell him about that. That's probably.
I have not taken that one down. So Heathers came about. I had done a musical called Reefer Madness, based on a 1930s movie, and that had been a big hit for us in LA. We moved to New York, and we were getting ready to open. It was had an amazing cast, including Kristen Bell. The first time we worked together ever since, but she was a student at NYU. Greg Edelman, who had done City of Angels and was amazing. Michelle Pock from the original Seussical. Our cast was phenomenal. And we were getting ready to open, and then 9/11 happened about a week before we opened. So we were there, and like so much theater, we were down. We opened, I think we closed maybe a month later. Nobody was going in. Variety Arts, where we were, was below the demarcation line, around 13th and 3rd, so it was not a time to be doing theater. You know, Phantom of the Opera had 5 people in the entire house, just couldn't survive. And we came back and we thought, well, that's not gonna happen. And then at the time, Bob Greenblatt, who had seen a lot of my theater and had just become president of Showtime, called me and said, hey, why don't we do Reefer Madness as a movie? And we got Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming and Nev Campbell, and we got some Emmy noms and won an Emmy, and it did great. And we, to this day, we have lots of versions of Reefer Madness, our amateur rights out. And we get a call saying, the guy who wrote Heathers, Dan Waters, he's a fan of Reefer Madness. Would you want to talk to the team about making that a musical? And I loved Heathers the movie. I was challenged by Heathers the movie, given the world that now existed. a world that, you know, kind of exists in a post-Columbine way of school violence. But I felt there was something with Heather's. And I went to Kevin Murphy, who wrote Reefer Madness. And Kevin at the time had become one of the biggest showrunners in Hollywood. He was running Desperate Housewives, all this stuff. And I had just done a movie called She's the Man, which was a soccer movie. One song. And always been cheap.
Warm feelings.
We won our Teen Choice Award. I still have my surfboard. More people talk about me having the Teen Choice surfboard than anything. Weirdly enough, it's an actual surfboard, and it has the fins, but it always cracks me up because I'm like, who's taking that surfing? And it's just weird. But so I was busy doing that. Kevin was busy with Desperate Housewives. And Larry O'Keefe, who was a dear friend of ours, when we did Reefer Madness, Larry was creating Batboy. And Larry had been part of our Reefer Madness family. He had been our audition pianist. And then he and his wife now were focused on Legally Blonde. And while Legally was hitting and doing great business, Larry, Kevin, and I kept talking about trying to find a project to do. And Heather's became this conversation. And we ended up talking about how you do it, what you don't do. What we realized was we had to make some changes. In the end of Heather's, pretty much everyone's dead. And we needed them to be able to sing songs. So a lot of times when you do a tryout, you start working on, the very first song we wrote was I Love My Dead Gay Son. And we wrote it because we thought that was a line from the movie that everyone knew. And we thought, well, that feels like that has to be a song. And then we worked backwards. And then we realized in theater, one of the beauties of theater is that you can be dead and come back as a Greek chorus. So Chandler and Kurt, death doesn't stop you in theater. It doesn't necessarily stop you in a film, but we weren't doing exactly Heather's the movie. So we do a reading. First reading is we're doing it. We're all represented by WME, and our reading is in the WME screening room. Our audience are agents. Let me just tell you right now, that's the best audience ever. Agents who hate theater and are going to come and sit in the middle of their day looking at their watches thinking, why am I here? Why? And then we had Dan Waters, who wrote it, the original movie. And we had Denise Denovi, who produced the original movie. Michael Lehman, who directed. So we had that group. That was our audience. And so it got a little tricky. We had a little rights mishap because everybody's like, oh, well, the movie, Dan owns all the rights, but he didn't. The movie was actually partially owned by Lakeshore, who made She's the Man. So I had a good relationship with them, so we did this. We only did Act 1. And Act 1 was like this. Kristen Bell was playing Veronica. We had an amazing cast of everybody kind of gathered. James Snyder and Harry Potter on Broadway right now, and had I put him in She's the Man, and we were just in a room like probably half this size, just cut it off there. Agents, original people, us, and I'm narrating. And I see Dan, and Dan has his notebook, and no matter what somebody says, Dan knows this. Dan never looks up, just angry scribbles. I'm narrating, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope no one else is noticing how bad this is going. But people were kind of giggling and laughing, and we finished the end of Act 1. Dan comes over, and I'm thinking, oh, here it comes. He's going to tell me we don't have the rights. And Dan says, I just was writing everything I love. And we were like, oh. And he's like, can you fix my problem? I was like, what's your problem? He goes, I killed all the good characters. And you brought them back. And I was like, well, hang on, then let us do Act 2. And we put that show, started doing readings of that show with an amazing cast of people. And we were doing those readings in LA, and when you do a reading of a new musical or a new play, you're looking for backers. You're looking for somebody to say, I'll write a check. And we kept improving, we kept making our songs stronger. We have a lot of songs that don't exist anymore, but we kept getting stronger and stronger. Then we went to New York, and there's a place called Joe's Pub, which is right next to the Public and Joe Papp, and we did a reading, and it was packed, celebrities, everything. At that point, Kristen Bell, K-Bell, and all that cast was now a little bit older, so I brought in Annalie Ashford did Veronica, Jeremy Jordan did JB, Leslie Margarita played Fleming. I mean, it was an amazing cast. And that crushed, and then we felt we were on to something. And then we got offered to go to Boston, and we didn't really like the deal. And then we were like, well, screw it. I had a theater that I built in LA, let's just go there. So we cast it. I had a show at the time on Disney Channel called Liv and Maddie with Doug Cameron. And that was right across the street. That stage where I was across the street from my theater. And Ryan McCartan was my male lead in Liv and Maddie. And one day he was backstage singing. I was like, oh, you can sing? And then it turns out he'd been at the Guthrie Theater for like 3 summers. I'm like, oh, you'll come with me. And then we started casting everybody. I used my entire Liv and Maddie crew to give props and work. I mean, we were rehearsing kind of on Disney time because I'd yell cut and the show would come down and everyone would leave and I'd do this and my entire cast would come in and we would rehearse on the Liv and Maddie stage. And Suzanne Goddard Smith, who was our casting director for Liv and Maddie, was our casting director for others. And we decided to do it across the street. We did it, and it became a smash. It all of a sudden was packed, and all the original, like Heathers were coming out. Winona Ryder was sitting on the front row, literally doing every word from the show. And I had to tell Barrett Weed, who was our Veronica at the time, literally I tried not to tell anyone, but you know, in theater, if you're right there, you can't. And backstage, everyone's like, is Winona here? And I'm like, Winona Judd? No. Winona Judd is not. After the show, Winona came over to me and said, I love the show, but you cut my favorite line. I was like, what's your favorite line? And she said, there's a line about, I don't patronize bunny rabbits. I was like, I'll put it in. And we put it in, we've never cut it since. We always tell our staff, this line will never get cut. And it's the only line that is protected by the sainted Winona Ryder. So that show then, weirdly, there was a theater in New York that came to see the show and said, called New World Stages, said we love the show. This was about November, and they said we'd love for you to come to the show, like top of the year. So we transferred. We had no money. We had no set. Our set looked like this. And all of a sudden, we kept all of our cast, and we were up, and then it somehow did great, and we cut an album, and then we came down, and album is still in the top 10 or whatever for iTunes, still does great, and then we put our amateur rights out, and all these companies were doing it. We only kept 3 cities out. LA, New York, and London, in case we ever wanted to do something. About a year goes by, and we get a call from London. And they said, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and I'm like, not familiar. Here's his resume. Said, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Lord Webber, has a theater in town, and called the Other Palace, and would like you guys to come do a reading. And so Kevin, Larry, and I flew out. We did all of our casting online. We didn't know anybody. But our questions were, how do you know Heathers in London? How do you know, will this even work? An 80s musical based on Ohio? And all these references? None of this made sense. That reading, a week and a half, sold out every night. Audience is going crazy. And we ended up, a couple months later, opening the show. We broke every record. Lord Webber was tickled and confused. I think for a while he thought it was called the Harriets. And he kept saying, tell me more about the Harriets. And I'm like, I can't. If you want to know about Heather, I'm your man. Then we broke truly we were breaking record after record, and then we transferred to the West End to the Royal Haymarket Theatre. This is Noel Coward's theater. This is the third oldest theater in London. I'm a kid from West Texas, and I literally look like the Beverly Hillbillies. I walked in and I was like, golly, this sure is big. I'm just gonna put my boots over here. No, I'll just walk. Okay. And that broke every record. And then we won all these awards, and then we came down. And about a year and a half ago, we decided to put the show on tour. Started casting a pandemic hit. Came down. And we'd get a call. Hey, we're going to go back out with Heather. Great. Get a call. We're down. Great. Finally, it looked like we were going to get together, and all of a sudden, we got a call. Our main producer, Bill Kenwright, he called and he said, hey, the Royal Haymarket Theatre wants us back to help relaunch the West End for the summer. So we put a whole new cast together. We put a whole new tour cast together. We opened on the West End. We were pretty much the first show to open. We were the only show during the entire summer not to ever close. And we sold out, and then we launched our tour, and now, as of right now, we are in Birmingham tonight. And we will be traveling through the top of the year all over Wales and Ireland and Scotland. And last time we were in 2018, when we were there, we did our second album. And that album shot, so you can have the American version or you can have the British version. We added a song, thanks to Lord Weber, who felt Veronica needed her 11 o'clock number. And we agreed, but we could not figure out what it was. And Kevin and Larry wrote I Say No, which is my favorite song now. And we sprung it on the audience. We rehearsed during the day, and every night we did the regular show. And then one night we didn't announce, we were packed, and a lot of our fans we call corn nuts, and it's like Rocky Horror Picture Show, they come dressed up. And so we were all in the back of the theater, and everybody that were there mostly knew the show because they were fans. And this scene took a turn, and you could see all their heads looking at each other like, that's new dialogue. And then music cue comes in, and all their heads went, what's that song? Where'd that come from? And then Veronica started singing sort of a power ballad, telling JD to screw off. And she finishes Carrie Hope Fletcher's amazing, who currently, for Lord Weber, it's Cinderella on the West End, and he met her because of Heathers. And she hit that last note, and the entire audience just stood and cheered. And we were like, all right, it stays. And that's how it is. And I was in London prepping. I'm in town to do a movie called One True Loves that stars Philippa Sue from Hamilton, stars Simu Liu, who is Shang-Chi, and stars Luke Bracey, who did Holiday and Point Break. And I was prepping it all from London, and we were focusing on where to go, and then it was, how about Wilmington? And I was online Googling Wilmington and talking to my Heathers 8 hours later and coming back, and then I flew pretty much from London here, and now I'm here in Wilmington.
Now you're talking to us.
Now I'm talking to you.
Aren't we lucky? Yes.
And oh wait, what is this? Wait, are you all golfing? That's the most polite chat. I want to applaud, but I just have not decided yet. Let's see what 8 o'clock looks like.
You all should clap now.
But what I was excited about is my new partner in crime, my assistant, McKenna, graduated from here just like months ago. And now she's working with, so it's full circle, guys. I feel like no matter what, I am a part of this university. Also, I need to talk to you because I might have 3 credits I didn't complete in college.
I can get you those. So I think we've probably had enough exchange here. Do you have burning questions? And if you do, you should stand up, say your name, what department you're in, and
Project.
let it fly. If you need a microphone, there's a couple up here, but you'll have to walk past us.
It can be about film or television or theater. Don't have to be about anything.
Hello, my name is Hudson. It is not a station. That is my real name.
You're gonna, I would love to hear, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay, I'll say that all again. Hello, my name is Hudson Hamlet. It is not a stage name. That is my real name. I am a theater major. I am a junior here at UNTW, and I am a performance concentration. And my question is, what would be the biggest general decision or biggest general factor in your casting decisions?
The question, what is my biggest decision in casting?
Casting, yeah.
Great question. Casting is tricky. Casting is tricky because anyone who's ever directed, well, let's go back. Anyone who writes something that they have an idea. Then that vision changes to the director. The director might have an idea, and that idea might not always coincide with what's in the script. Then if you have producers or studio or network, they got an idea. And that idea might usually be more about financial upside. So they'll come in with a list. Here's my list. If you can get these actors, you can go make your project. When you start looking at roles for theater, singing, if you're doing a musical, if you can't sing it, it won't matter if you can act it. But singing it doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be singing it as written. You can go up or down. You can change. For everybody I've ever worked with, we've changed notes. We've made something. We want you to be comfortable, so we'll make that change. But you got to have something. For me, it always starts the minute you walk in the door. The minute you walk in, I'm making half of my decision up. Are you friendly? That's huge for me. Do I want to hang out with you for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months? I don't have to marry you, but I gotta like you. I know it's daunting. People come in all the time and you're nervous. But sometimes when you're so nervous, that makes us nervous. Because we can't tell if you're a serial killer or not. So coming in, and I always tell them, I drive my casting directors crazy. I will always say, give me an extra 5 minutes. Because I'm going to be like, how are you? Where are you from? What I'm looking is for commonality. I'm looking for, do you know, like, that's what I'm looking for. I tell this story, I've said this on TV, but it's a good example for me. Reefer Madness, Kristen Bell had done Tom Sawyer. I think it opened and closed in a night on Broadway. And people kept telling me, there's this girl, Kristen Bell. Great. Well, we get down to auditions and something happened, she didn't make it. I'm like, okay, that happens. Usually the casting director will say, well, we'll reschedule, there was a problem. Next day, no Kristen Bell. Okay. And they're like, oh, we'll talk to the agent. She's great. I'm like, okay. Not feeling it. Third time, doesn't show. Now the director in me is only thinking that is a sign of what my rehearsal process will be like. That is a sign that if I have 2 hours in this beautiful theater, if you're 45 minutes late, I don't get to push. We get to callbacks and we're getting ready. We're down the road with an actress, wonderful actress. And all of a sudden they look up and they're like, Kristen Bell's here. Well, I'm not happy about that. I'm like, okay. She comes in so much spunk, and introduces herself back when you could shake people's hands. And she came in and said, "Hi, I'm Kristen Bell. Do you want the song first or the scene?" I was like, song? She goes over and she crushed it. And I wrote a lot of dirty words of anger on my sheet because I did not want her to crush it. And then she did the book scene and she crushed it. And I wrote a lot of dirty words on my sheet. And then she turned to me and said, "Okay, I'll see you at rehearsal." And walked out. I knew she was the person. Sometimes it just is that connection. When I was finishing She's the Man, when we were doing She's the Man, we were down the road with another actor. And Channing Tatum came in. Channing had one line in Coach Carter and had a Mountain Dew commercial that hadn't come out. Channing came in, and there was something about Channing. Nothing on the resume that said cast Channing Tatum. Nothing said that's the guy. But he opened his mouth, and it was a hit. And everybody, mostly that came out of that process, I'm so proud of. Amanda Crew went on to Silicon Valley. Lexa Breckenridge, she's the star of Virgin River. Like, there was something about them. I got a call saying, I was doing a movie called The Game Plan for Disney. And they called and they said, "Well, we want you to meet the wrestler, The Rock." The Rock had just done Scorpion King. Here's his dialogue in Scorpion King. Ah! There might have been some variations on that. I don't know how Meisner, he got in his technique, but that was kid from Texas. I know wrestlers, and I had all these other kind of offers and things, and they said, "Well, just go have drinks with The Rock." I thought, oh, this is just I'm making bad turns in my career. I go and we meet at this bar, and he is surrounded by, there are more fans, and I'm 5'6" on a good day. Dwayne is 6'4" on any day. I walk over, and we're kind of had this like, is he somebody? And in my mind on the drive over, it's not somebody, I'm excited to go, I guess, meet him, but I don't know, like, can he act? And everybody leaves, it's just he and I, and he says, we don't even really say hi, hello, he says, "Gotta ask you a question." I was like, all right. He said, "Do you like Elvis Presley?" I was like, "I do." He's like, "Don't lie to me." As if I would have lied to The Rock. Like, "Oh, thank you, buddy." Crafty. He said, don't lie to me. I said, "No, I like Elvis Presley a lot. I'm from Texas." And he was like, "Tell me some facts about Elvis." I know facts. And I talk about Elvis. And he sits down and he's like, "Oh, thank God." I was like, I'm curious. He said, "Well, I love Elvis. And I decided that if I'm going to work with somebody like a director, it'd be great if they loved Elvis. So we'd have something in common." But as a director, what I learned was, that's usable. And in Game Plan, I made his character love Elvis. And throughout the movie, he sings Elvis. He actually plays the guitar from Elvis's real guitar from Gibson that they brought it over. We had all kinds of stuff from Graceland. But as a director, I was able to find a character with him. So, from casting, you're looking at what everybody can do just in a few minutes. And so it's not fair, but can you talk long enough that I'm interested to keep you around for one more minute? And maybe I'll give you a note and ask you to do it again. Maybe I'll just ask you a question that's out of left field. One thing I always love is, on the resume, I'm like, I'll look at theater, I'll check and be like, oh, and I want to talk to you. But special skills get me every time. Because the people, and I'm not saying do this, but sometimes people on special skills will be like, one guy wrote he can ride in a dryer for 3 minutes. And I thought that was so unique. But my question was, at some point, did you go beyond 3 and realize 3 was as far as you could go? And that made him laugh, and we started talking, and it bought time. It's a hard thing to ask an actor in an audition to know what I want. It's hard. I've been thinking it. And remember, whether you're in New York or London, LA, any place, a lot of times by the time you come into audition, I've heard that line 50 times. The only thing I hate more than that line is the next person who's going to say it the 51st time. And so I will improvise, I'll do things, but the mistake I think actors make in general is they somehow think the audition begins, hello, my name is. It's how you walk in, it's how you leave. Ellie McMore, who I had seen on Broadway and Bring It On, she auditioned for Mac for Heathers in LA. And she came in totally 80s up, like adorable. But also to the point where I was a little scared that she might be cuckoo bananas. And I called the producer of Bring It On and I said, I think she's phenomenal, but I'm also concerned she's crazy. And the producer's like, could be both. I'm like, I'll take it. Now one of my closest friends, but she made a choice. And that's the hardest thing. How are you memorable as an actor in 2 minutes? How do you make me think I want to watch you for 5 minutes? How do you make me think the audience wants to watch you for 20 minutes? How do you think the movie? And then I remember I got to present you. I got to present you to the studio. I got to keep presenting you. So the more you're yourself, the more you're unique, the more you're friendly, the better it's going to be. Other questions?
That's quite the answer. Other questions? And Kristen has a microphone here now. Are there questions?
Anybody?
Mackenzie?
My name is Mackenzie Hudson. I'm a vocal performance.
He's going to bring a microphone. You're going to get a mic right there.
My name is Mackenzie Hutchison. I'm a vocal performance major. This is my 3rd year at the department, I think. You had mentioned a little bit about COVID and how that had prolonged Heathers for a little bit. What did you learn from the past year and a half about just the entertainment industry in general, just from this time that we've all had of uncertainty?
COVID has changed everything. I was shooting a television series on Netflix called The Crew with Kevin James. We were in the middle of shooting it. And we got shut down. And when we got shut down, everybody got shut down. And at that time, I think everybody thought it was about 2 weeks of shutdown. I think the cast and crew were like, this sounds like a good vacation. And then we know what happened. We were the first show back for Netflix to keep, we were filming in Long Island. We came back to finish the other half of the series. I looked like a surgeon. My father-in-law was a head of cardiology at Mayo Clinic. He is a surgeon. Well, like, I had gloves, mask, everything. We had to figure out, how do you interact? How do you do this? So there was no vaccine then. Plexiglass behind everything. We came up with a protocol. We were getting calls from people all over the world wanting to know how we were going to do it. We had a restaurant scene, and Sarah Stiles, wonderful Tony-nominated actress from Tootsie. We had a restaurant scene, and our normal table was like a normal table. And Netflix was like, everyone's got to be 18 inches apart. So the table looked like the round table for King Arthur with 3 people. And they were like, shoot it at an angle. I'm like, shoot it at an angle? That's the weirdest table in the world. Hello, how are you? Half the fries. Give it to that person and have them bring it over to me. So we started rewriting we had to deal with intimacy issues. And we ended up, one of our actors had a kissing scene. And I knew his wife was a wonderful actress, and I doubled the person he was kissing with her and got a wig and was like, I'll do it that way. We wrapped that in September, and Disney hired me to go to Chicago to do a Christmas movie called Christmas Again. Comes out in December for Disney. And we went there, and now crew in a tight space. So then all of a sudden you had to say, who's non-essential for that moment? Not for the show, but okay, you brought the prop, you go stand out there, you can stay. I mean, it was a checklist. And then you were scared every time an actor went, like nobody could leave. We were all in corporate housing, we couldn't leave. And then when I went to London, vaccines had started. I was able to get a vaccine, but the testing, we're still now on our show, we test 3 times a week, whether you have a vaccine, vaccinated or not. The challenges are going to continue because, in a weird way, there are probably benefits. We used to have craft service that was just a table of food open for everybody's dirty hands. There was always a spoon, and I always thought, who uses that spoon? I don't. Stick it and get jelly belly. Apparently, I'm the cause of every problem. In retrospect, maybe I should have used the spoon. Now we order Mass and I got an email today. You get your menu for the next day. You order, and they just hand it to you. And so there are some things that will help with efficiency. That, in a weird way, food is a weird thing on a set because if you're filming, our rule is you film until the last person has eaten. So if you're the last crew member and you were doing something, I gotta get you off the clock and get you back on. Well, 200, 300, 400 with extras. Now, if everybody just picks up their lunch, there's no buffet, we're probably moving more efficiently. I think the industry will be forever challenged and changed because now you have to get COVID insurance. Now you have to add things on your budget that you didn't have. Now you have health and safety supervisors that were not a part, that wasn't a job. You had a set medic. In theater, our cast to sing tested every day. And then in rehearsal, we had all the crew without masks. With masks, I had no mask so I could direct, and my cast had no mask. Every time someone got sick, whether it was COVID or not, scared. So I think for the foreseeable future, until this is all behind us, I think it's going to affect us as an industry, but that affects cost. And that will probably keep a lot of independents maybe from getting made, just because if you have to add another $450,000 to a budget, and it's for everyone's safety, but it's not what we were prepped to do. Other questions? Anyone feel it? Yeah.
So, I actually work for you, Debbie. What would be your best advice for our students?
Now you have to use the mic. I know. We took the trouble of getting that mic set up for you. We want you to use it.
So what would be your best advice for our students as they move forward towards their careers?
Here's what I'll say without knowing any of you, but knowing all of you. If you are driven by the arts, it is a different drive. I have 2 brothers that are lawyers and one's an engineer. Boy, that makes sense. They went to law school and then they got a job doing what they trained to do. We learn a craft. And then we have to get someone to pay us to apply that craft. The best advice is, A, you have to believe in yourself because there's a difference between a job and a journey. those of us who this is what we do for a living, this is a journey. My journey, whether or not I was directing this movie or doing theater in Midland, Texas, would be the same journey because I'm servicing my craft. Every opportunity you get to write, direct, act, sing, you take. Because you don't know when that next opportunity is going to be. And if you apply something and learn something, you'll potentially improve. I learn something new in every single thing I do. Sometimes it's a cheat, sometimes it's a trick, sometimes it's, oh, I could have done that. But we are kind of a sea of individuals. I used to think that, oh, when I first go, they need me. They don't need any of us. If I quit tomorrow, they'll just get another director to finish that movie. I'm not quitting tomorrow. You're good. I think I got another 2 weeks in me. Find me an Applebee's and check out. But you have to wake yourself up every day and say yes, because everyone else is going to say no. If you have a personality in which rejection is hard, this is not a good industry for you. Because the industry is built on rejection. We always tell people, you'll go through 100 no's. You just need one yes. One yes. So if you flip the odds, it's not about the 100 no's. It's about the one yes. I love sports. And in sports, you dream of that notion that you're going to, right? You're going to hit the final, whatever your favorite sport is. You're going to be there, right? You'll be in the Super Bowl. You're in the playoffs. You're at World Series. How many people really, from the time they're dreaming of they're playing in high school and they're doing awesome. And then they hit college ball. Awesome. And then they get drafted. They're living the dream. Oh, their team is horrible. And then that's it. They didn't get the ring. They played, but did they play the best? What matters is they played. What matters is they accomplished something that nobody else accomplished. All of you know somebody in whatever profession you're dreaming of, somebody that you went to school with that you thought was gonna, and then they didn't. There's always I remember there was a girl in my high school, she was very talented, and we thought that's the one. And she got to college and she kept acting, and we were all like, ooh. And then she went to New York and tried, and after about 6 months of rejection, she's like, I don't think that made her less talented, but the game changed because I think she thought, well, if you got all of that in high school and you got that in college, shouldn't you? So that advice is about every day picking yourself up and reminding yourself that nobody was calling me, so I just created a theater company. It was difficult. But what was my choice? If I had not called a bunch of people and said, let's put on a show, we'll raise money. We did garage sales. We sold more crap. Literally, if I came over to your house, I was going to take something. And I was going to sell it to you the next day. You'd be like, that looks like a stereo I have. And I was like, well, I'll sell it to you for $40. You know you like it. Had I not done that, I wouldn't be talking to you. Maybe I would, but it's just hard to stay motivated. And the further you get away from academia, the further away you're on your own. I loved college. You're like, go to class. Like, I loved it. I knew what my day was. I got to Hollywood and I was like, oh, when's spring break? Oh, every day. Got it. How do I pay my bill? Oh, I need a job. Got it. Being a tour guide, I'm proud of. I'm proud of everything I did, but you gotta push yourself. Question in the back. There's mine.
Hi, I'm in the MFA in filmmaking program. So I think a lot of the questions have been kind of pertaining to acting, but as a filmmaker, you need a crew. So what's your best advice for networking?
For networking, one of my favorite things that I'm always confused by is how much easier it is now. Networking is this. So here's what's going to happen. I'll leave tonight. A smart person is going to find me on social media. And that smart person is going to follow me. Not because it's so great, though it really is, but that person's going to follow me, and that person's going to say, oh, by the way, I saw you tonight. And if it hit me at the right moment, I'm going to say, cool. We are now connected. I can't tell you how many times people don't do that, which used to be you have to write a letter. I thought networking is we're all connected. McKenna didn't just become my assistant. She inherited a company. The very first day, all she got were emails from people in the company. Hey, welcome McKenna. Hey. Literally, president of production. Hey, head of development. And I'm trying to explain to her, we're not insane, but you're now stuck with us. Well, it might be a little insane. The people you know, hopefully you build your network. Supporting each other is a lot better than tearing each other down. There's that feeling sometimes in Hollywood that somebody's success ain't great for you. That's not true. My favorite thing is people's success. We cast Simu before Shang-Chi. He's got the biggest movie in the world right now. We're thrilled for him. And now, last 3 weeks, everybody, I got a script for Simu. I want to see. So, these sort of interpersonal connections, vital. I am proud that every cast and crew that I've worked with, for the most part, I think I can count on them being a friend. But I can count, sometimes I don't talk to them for 3 years. And then all of a sudden somebody will text me and say, hey, I'm in town filming, can we go have a drink? You have to put yourself out there. That is just number one, is reach out, connect, let people know. But build your network. Because sometimes also that's who you call when you're feeling like I haven't had a callback in a year. No one bought my album. I did a concert, nobody came. Doesn't matter, that's how we build each other up, but you have to help each other that way. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm a voice major, performance, and my question was, you mentioned that you like the special skills section of the resume. Is there anything else that you look for particularly on a resume? Anything that is impressive?
I think resumes are interesting because there's always this weird thing. A lot of times some of your best stuff was like high school. And then there's that moment where you're like, I was the star in blah, 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 high school. That becomes a trickier moment. If you're 15 and in Hollywood and trying out for the Disney Channel, sure. But once you've started your collegiate career or your professional career, what I'm looking for is that information. What I'm also looking for is what is more to you. What is interesting? Do you actually do you surf? Do you have a skill? But you got to be careful not to lie. I did a show where I needed someone to roller skate. That was the number one thing this person needed to do. And the person who I cast told me they could roller skate. We were in rehearsal and said, well, I'm just going to put on my roller skates and then warm up. And I was like, great. I walked away. I'm literally like in that room, and he's here, and all of a sudden I hear, ah! He snapped his ankle. He did roller skate when he was 6 years old. He just hadn't roller skated in 40 years. So you kind of have to find what you're putting out there as truthful. But it's that competitive look. Sometimes if you don't feel you have enough, then it is that thing that says, like, I've traveled to 5 countries. I can sing the song of a bird. I know how to do Britney Spears with my eyelash. Whatever it is. I'm looking for something that shows me personality. For a performer, that's number one. And a lot of times, it's not that you don't have enough things on your resume. It's just something has to speak to me. Get creative. Other questions? I think you have time for one more question. Right, one more.
No more.
This is the good one. All of them will be good. This one.
No pressure.
I'm Abby. I'm a theater major. I was wondering how you deal with the feelings of feeling behind compared to your other class members or other people in the industry.
Say it one more time.
How do you deal with the feeling of maybe you feel a little bit behind other people that you're?
How do you feel about where you stand within the industry?
Yeah.
That's a great question. By the way, all of your questions were great. There's always this thought about making it. Have you made it? And a lot of times you find the people who maybe were graduating ahead of you, did they make it? Oh, I heard they went so-and-so, they didn't make it. It is not a race against them. It's just a journey you're on. And once you begin to put yourself that way, I have a friend, huge rock set, like arena level. And he had a bad album. And that bad album didn't just put him in a funk. And the minute he had this bad album, he and his band looked, and there was like some other band, 2 other bands that kind of blew up at that same time. And that made it worse. They bounced back. You gotta find your lane and pick yourself up, but you just can't think of it as the competition. You're not gonna get every part. And I can't cast everybody I like. I wish I could. And the longer you're in the business, the more friends you have that want that part. We're here casting in Wilmington, and years ago I did a movie called Parental Guidance with Billy Crystal and Bette Midler in Atlanta. All my Atlanta cast, I can come to Wilmington. So while we're casting here, I got all my friends in Atlanta that I've worked with that I love. And now I'm like, oh, maybe he'd be great. Maybe not. Not because they're not great actors, but because they just might not be what I'm looking for. But if any of this beats you up, if any of this is and it's hard because this is where, like, you wake up and it's melancholy, and you're like, I'll just look at TikTok for 48 hours. Scroll. It won't get any better. And worse, as you continue in the industry, sometimes you're going to have a hit. Sometimes you're going to have a miss. Sometimes you're going to book a job, and sometimes you're not. It's lifespan. And everybody who will say that they made it, and there are people who make it, but they're still struggling the next day to sell tickets to their next movie. Or they got in a fight. So there's never any real making it as much as are you happy with what you're doing. I thank you guys. We are filming here, and so you are now forever linked with us. I thank you for coming out and chatting, and we are now friends. We know each other. We have now experienced this. So hopefully I'll get to know you in the future. Hopefully I'll get to work with some of you. But we all have this shared thing together. So I thank you guys. Bye.
So now that
in on this. I love it. Well, when we are filming here,
Yes, you'll blend in beautifully.
I'll do it. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.